assigned Adam's role in the earth. Same with Eve. Eve was mankind in word and ruach, in wife, female form, depicting her role in the earth. The word instructs, the ruach directs. Reference Proverb chapter 1, verse 8. As above, so is beneath, in earth as in heaven. Adam's role to instruct and Eve's role to direct was all affected when the covenant to maintain Yah's image was broken, when the commandment of Genesis chapter 2 and verse 17 was disobeyed. When Eve ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the image of Yah in her had been tampered. Her role of director and multiplier had not changed, yet her countenance towards her role had been affected. Genesis chapter 3, verse 16. The beginning of that reads, "Unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception." Now, Eve's role as the incubator, the multiplier, the director, is just as Ruach is described spiritually. When word was spoken, spirit moved, spirit enacted, she produced. Eve still had to conceive, because that's her work. Yet to sorrow in it, it becomes her toil. Hallelujah. So to connect culture that greatly multiplied in Hebrew is Rabbah. Resh and Beit are the characters to make this word. Resh, the head, physically houses the brain that mentally houses our thoughts, our logic in the natural. And it also means leader. And we all know that, Beit means son from so many lives. We can reference Psalms 119 and verses 153 through 160 for Resh. And it touches on afflictions, transgressions, and wickedness, as well as being quickened, tender mercies, and loving kindness. The group for Resh is closed with verse 160 saying, "Thy word true, the beginning, and every one of thy righteous judgments forever." And that includes Genesis 3, verses 14 through 19. So, looking at verses 14 through 19, let's read, because that's mostly where my lesson's going to come from. Starting at verse 19. This was after everyone disobeyed. And verse 14 reads, "And Adon, or Yahweh, said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise its heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, curse the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou, and unto thus shalt thou return. All right. So these are the areas that will be directly affected and effected through Eve's actions. Now this is this is a personal peek into my life. I didn't have my father growing up like some of us did or didn't. So I would look at shows like Family Matters and Cosby Show and Fresh Prince and imagine or build a father in my head. Now that I'm learning to live truth and walk in it, I find myself reading script as I would imagine Abba would speak to his children. And for many years, I read from a fearful space, and rightfully so. We should, because we are to respectfully fear Yah. Yet, Yahweh Ahava. Hallelujah. Reading Genesis 3, verse 16 and 17. From these loving fathers that I built to cope, Yah wasn't cursing his children. He was simply explaining the results of their disobedience. Similar to when Jacob was dying and he cursed his son's anger, not them. Let's go over to Genesis chapter 49 and verse 7. Hallelujah. Genesis chapter 49 verse 7 reads, cursed their anger. Hallelujah. Cursed their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Now, Simeon and Levi's actions, they resulted from anger. In their anger, they sinned. In their anger, they sinned. Jacob cursed the root cause of his sons to miss the mark. Now, their punishment to be divided and scattered was both a warning and a protection. It warns that if this behavior continues, if you continue to follow in this way, if you continue to be part of this covenant, if you continue to go with these evil, unrighteous ways, the results is to be apart and separated. While simultaneously using this as protection, he divided them in Jacob. He divided them in Jacob. That's protection, because you are amongst family. Even if you do wrong, find yourself in the community. Like Pastor teaches culture and teaches community and teaches village. There's protection in that. It's protection being divided while he divided them in Jacob and scattered them in Israel. It all depends on what covenant they chose to uphold. Them, their generations after them, their children, the families that they created beyond that moment. It's up to them to decide. So Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, from the same concept, is a warning for the serpent, yet protection for Eve. Let's read it. Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise its heel. Now, enmity or enmity is defined as hatred or ill will between enemies. This verse bluntly states, is just straight up what a covenant with the serpent looks like. It's rooted in animosity. Nothing good can come out of it. But in the same breath, hallelujah, in the same breath, having this hatred for serpent and serpent-like behavior protects Eve. And we know that the woman's number one need is protection. Hallelujah. Pastor talked about it in the live. So, Yah begins to tell Eve what has come out of her actions of making this covenant with the serpent holy. Yahweh don't do anything. So when he speaks to you, or when he comes to you, you have to look from a perspective of everything is covered. Ooh, hallelujah. Everything is covered. So when he spoke to Eve, he spoke about what would come out of it from all senses, spiritual side, the natural side. He was speaking to how she would be affected mentally, emotionally, and physically. All things. Although her spirit remains with the body. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. She would be sorrowful. She would be sorrowful. But her spirit would still remain. That's good. She separated herself from Yah. Her nature, her character was no longer in covenant with Yah's countenance. And this is why sorrow has been greatly multiplied. Now, with that being said, let's go over to Adam. Let's apply the same concept to Adam. The first thing spoken in Genesis 3:17, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife. Pastor Kofi reminds us frequently that the man's number one need is to be heard, respected. Curse the ground for thy sake. In sorrow, there's that word again, sorrow. In sorrow shalt thou eat it all the days of thy life. Because Adam didn't listen to his husband. Hallelujah. Because Adam didn't listen to his husband, Yah. Adam now has to experience not being heard because he was a distracted wife, a wife that lost sight of the mission. All the while tilling a cursed ground that's yielding scarcity. Let's look at it in from a spiritual standpoint through some cultural lenses. So the word thorn used in verse 18, the word thorn, I looked it up in modern Hebrew and found that it is I'm gonna spell it out. CHOWACH. And it's pronounced, forgive me if I'm wrong and correct me. I don't speak it every day, so there you go. Koach or Hoach. And from taking pastor's class, from the Hebrew characters class, I learned how to connect the phonetic with the original characters. And it's beautiful because it gives so much insight. It breaks it down even further. That sound, that throaty sound, pastor spoke on it in the rising. It said it comes from the character het, the 8th character, which means wall of protection. Comes from Aleph, source, that's the number 1 character, and Kaf, the 11th character, meaning hands or wings. This too is a warning and a protection simultaneously. If Adam continues to hearken, or to not hearken, forgive me, if Adam continues to not hearken unto Yah, there is a wall or a barrier keeping him from source, and Yah's hand of wrath will ever be present. Hallelujah. This displays how the covenant between word and ruach will not be broken. It won't be compromised. There is a het around it. The latter of Matthew chapter 19 and verse 6 says, let no man put asunder. That includes Adam. When Adam ate of the fruit, he became wife to the serpent. Hallelujah. And the herb bearing seed that Yah gave for meat in Genesis chapter 1:28 is no longer available to Adam in abundance. He now has to eat the herb of the field. The herb of the field. Now, it's still hope, and I'm going to I'm going to show that in a little bit. It sounds a bit devastating, but there's still hope. But if Adam returned his ear to Yah, this same wall will protect Adam and keep him connected to source and under Yah's hand of protection, or Yah's wings, if you will. A perfect example of this is the story of Ruth. Adam now has to make a decision to go back and glean from his father's field. Adam must listen to his mother, Ruach. Come on. Adam must listen to his mother, Ruach, and go back to the word, his father, and be wife to one husband. Hallelujah. Let's go to Ruth chapter 2. And We're going to be reading verses 8 through 12. Now, in this thought process, you have to be able to apply the position that Adam is in to the story of Ruth to see Yah's response. If that makes sense. I'm trying to say you can see Yah's love through Boaz and how he took in Ruth. And since we're speaking of Adam being the wife unto Yah, it's fitting. So Ruth chapter 2 verse 8 says, 8 through 12, we're going to read all of them. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast to my maidens. Now, Boaz is telling Ruth basically that he's welcoming her to come and glean. And glean is something that they would do and come and get the leftovers of a harvest. Remember Adam, he couldn't get that seed bearing. He had to just get the herb, not the herb that bears seed. He just had the herb. So now he's in a position where he has to go and glean. And keep in mind, this is Elimelech's family. So the father, come on. So he had to glean. She had to glean from Boaz's field. And it says, abide here fast. Now that means to cleave, hold on to, come back, if you will. Don't go nowhere else. Stay right here. Let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go after them. Verse 9. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? That's protection. Hallelujah. That is protection. The wife in Adam needed protecting from the serpent. Come on. He had to show Adam that there's still protection here if you stay here. Cleave to here. The latter of verse 9. And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. Protection. Hallelujah. Verse 10. Then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground. There's a posture we got to take so that we can glean in the field. When you messed up, you can't you can't just act like, okay, well, I'm back. Now what? But in the garden, Adam had already said, I did eat. That was a confession. He owned it. Accountability. He owned it. Hallelujah. Still in verse 10. And this is Ruth. Ruth said unto him, why have I found grace in thine eyes? She knew that, she didn't necessarily belong there, she felt like. And thou should have taken knowledge of me. Seeing I am a stranger. Remember, Ruth was Moabite. And reading before it said Moabite-ish. Because she chose to go with her mother-in-law. Hallelujah. We're going to, replace those with understandings of how Pastor talked today, where he said there are mysteries, right? Now Naomi said, go. Go away. She had to do it a few times. And her sister-in-law, she was like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to go back home. After she had been in the presence of what it was supposed to be like from culture. Because of Elimelech. She decided to go back. Whereas Ruth chose to cleave to Naomi. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I wanna go back. Because there's an emphasis of that cleaving. Because Ruth said, verse 16, chapter 1 of Ruth. Ruth said, entreat me not to leave. Please stop telling me that. Or to return from following after thee, because this what I know. This what I'm going to hold on to, because it's been good to me. For whether thou goest, I will go. And where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Your people, my people. Yo, my Yah. Ruth said, where thou